Welcome back to the deep dive. Our mission here is to take these huge bodies of systematic knowledge and just break them down into something you can get your head around instantly.
Something useful.
Exactly. Think of it like getting a perfectly labeled schematic of a really complex engine before you even have to turn the key. We want you to walk away with that master framework.
And today, we are charting, well, the essential landscape of belief itself. We're diving deep into the foundations of Islamic Creed, or Aqeedah.
And our source material for this is a very structured, very academic text, the Facilitated Creed, or Aqeedah Al-Muyassarah, by Dr. Ahmed bin Abdul Rahman Al Qadi.
Right. And this text, it doesn't just give us a list of things to believe. It gives us a complete map, how those beliefs are proven, how they're defended, and how they're applied.
So the mission for you, the learner, is pretty straightforward: to gain a really thorough, organized understanding of the 6 essential articles of faith, the pillars of Iman.
And not just what they are, but to see exactly how this creed uses logic, revelation, even sensory experience to back up every single one of its claims.
We're also going to look the other side of the coin, the historical and philosophical opposition, so you understand what this creed is against just as much as what it's for.
That structure is really its defining feature. The author makes it clear this isn't just, a random collection of dogma.
Right.
It's defined by a few core things. First, and this is paramount, its reliance on direct, authentic revelation, the Quran and the Sunnah.
Okay.
And second, it holds that this creed aligns perfectly with unspoiled human nature, the fitra, and also with clear, sound intellect, the aql.
I find that relationship so interesting. Revelation and intellect working together, not fighting each other.
That's precisely. The text also insists on this crucial idea of balance, a characteristic known as wasaya. It's about avoiding the extremes.
The overly lax or the overly rigid views that you see pop up in history.
Exactly. And alongside that balance, there's taysir, simplicity, clarity. The whole goal is to present these complex metaphysical truths in a way that is just systematic, avoids contradiction, and keeps you safe from superstition or irrationality.
And that rigorous, structured method is exactly what makes this text such a powerful resource for anyone who wants that kind of comprehensive, organized knowledge. So let's unpack this. We have to start with the foundation. Before we can talk about God or angels or destiny, we need the basic building blocks. What are these bedrock articles of faith, the 6 pillars of Usul al-Iman?
So the entire Islamic faith is structurally supported by 6 fundamental pillars. These aren't like optional extras, they are irreducible necessities.
Okay.
So you must have complete, firm conviction in 1, God or Allah.
Right.
2, his angels. 3, his books, the scriptures. 4, his messengers, the prophets. 5, the last day, resurrection, afterlife, all of it.
I'm the last one.
And number 6, divine decree or qadar, which encompasses both its good and its bad outcomes.
So what's the payoff? Why organize your entire existence around these 6 specific ideas? The source seems to say it's not just about, personal salvation, it's a whole worldview.
It's a completely integrated framework for existence. The most immediate benefit is achieving true, sincere servitude to God, Tawheed, purifying your intention.
And beyond that.
On a deeper level, it gives you safety from contradiction and, logical holes. This kind of structured belief offers peace, tranquility, because it satisfies both the needs of the soul and the intellect's need for a coherent story.
So it brings intellectual satisfaction and, as the text says, immunity from superstition.
Exactly.
Okay, so the first and most critical pillar is belief in God, Iman Billah. How does the source define this?
It's defined as a firm conviction in his existence, his absolute lordship over everything, his possession of perfect, flawless attributes, and his complete freedom from any imperfection, any weakness, exhaustion, deficiency, none of that.
But how does the text actually prove his existence? This is the big question.
And the strength of this creed is really in its multi-layered evidence. The Creator's existence is backed up by 4 distinct but mutually reinforcing lines of proof.
All right, let's start with the most immediate one, the one that doesn't need any complex philosophy. The sound innate disposition, the fitra.
The fitra. This is that natural human instinct. You could call it the pre-programmed default setting of the human spirit.
The default setting, I like that.
The text maintains that every human being, if you just left them alone, uncorrupted, would instinctively recognize and affirm the existence of a single, all-powerful creator.
There's a famous hadith on this, right?
A definitive one. The source quotes it. Every infant is born upon the fitra, then his parents make him a Jew or a Christian or a Magian.
So the burden of proof is actually on the person denying God because affirmation is the factory setting.
That's the argument. And if the fitra is so strong, why do people deviate? The text is very precise on this.
External factors.
Only external corrupting influences. Think of the fitra like pure, clean water. It only gets murky when you introduce outside stuff, misguided education, your environment, or just those internal whispers of doubt.
So belief is really an act of purifying that original state, not adopting something foreign.
That's it, exactly.
That's a powerful starting point. But, for people whose fitra has been clouded, how does the text move to pure external logic? That brings us to the second proof. Clear reason. Aql Sareh.
Right. Reason itself dictates that existence requires a creator. The source argues that everything we see in the universe, from the perfect orbits of planets down to the biology in a single cell, is an instance of creation.
And creation can't exist without a creator.
It's a logical impossibility for creation to exist without a prior, eternal, uncreated cause. The text uses a really multiple analogy here, the analogy of the travelers.
The ready-made campsite.
Exactly that. Imagine a group of travelers arriving in the middle of nowhere and finding a perfectly pitched tent, a fire already blazing with food cooking on it, and cool water drawn from a well.
Right.
Would any sane person conclude that, oh, the wind just happened to pitch the tent, and random atoms collided to make the meal?
No, of course not. You'd assume someone was there before you, someone prepared it.
Reason dictates that the intricate, ordered setup must have had an intelligent designer. The universe, which is infinitely more complex, cannot logically be chalked up to blind chance or accident.
So we have the internal proof, the fitra, and the external logical proof, the aqwal. What about what we can actually see and touch? The third proof, manifest sensory experience.
Al-His al-Mashhud. This proof comes from two places. First, just our ongoing observation of nature, the creation of the heavens and the earth, the cycle of life and death, all of it.
It's a constant sensory confirmation of a creator's power.
It is. But the more compelling part, for many, is the observation of miracles and divine intervention, specifically answered prayers and prophetic science.
The text includes a really vivid anecdote about this, about the drought.
Yes, the prophet was giving the Friday sermon, and a man stands up and complains that a drought has brought them to the brink of disaster.
Okay.
The prophet immediately raises his hands to pray, and while he's still praying, clouds form instantly. It starts raining so heavily that the man has to shout to be heard.
Oh.
It keeps raining until the next Friday, when the same man comes back and says, we're flooded now. Can you pray for it to stop?
So he did.
He prayed again, and the clouds parted immediately, clearing the sky. This is manifest, verifiable, sensory evidence of divine power intervening in real time.
That kind of direct evidence just bypasses all the philosophical arguments.
Yeah.
And finally, the last proof, which ties it all together, authentic revelation.
Al-Shar al-Sahih. This is the ultimate testimony, the overwhelming weight of the Quran and the authentic Sunnah. The argument is cumulative.
Meaning?
The sheer perfection, the consistency, the internal coherence of the divine message. You add to that its verifiable historical accuracy, its predictions that came true, its profound moral code. It all testifies to its origin.
So something this perfect must come from a perfect being, thereby proving the existence of the one who revealed it. So we've established existence with 4 proofs. Now we get into the actual nature of that existence. Tawheed, the absolute oneness of God. The source doesn't just treat this as one idea, though. It breaks it down into 3 distinct but inseparable dimensions.
This tripartite division is the intellectual spine of the entire creed. It's so important. We begin with Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, the oneness of Lordship.
Lordship. Okay, what is that, lawyer?
It's the conviction that God is the sole creator, the sole owner, and the sole manager of all affairs in the entire cosmos.
And the source breaks down that lordship, that rububiyyah, into 3 specific domains, right?
It does. First is creation, or khalq. He's the exclusive originator of all things, bringing them from nothing into existence.
Okay.
Then there's ownership, mulk. This means absolute unending dominion. Everything belongs to him.
And third?
Finally, command and management, or amir. He alone issues the decrees, whether that's the universal laws of physics or the legislative laws for human life.
Now here's a critical point the source makes. Historically, a lot of polytheistic groups actually affirmed this first dimension, didn't they? They believed in a supreme creator.
That is the crucial historical nugget. Many ancient civilizations, including the pre-Islamic Arabs, absolutely affirmed God as the ultimate creator and sustainer.
So where did they go wrong?
They utterly failed. In the next and most demanding dimension, Tawheed Al-Uluhiyyah, the oneness of deity and worship.
This is where belief has to translate into action.
Exactly. If Rububiyyah is acknowledging God runs the universe, Uluhiyyah is making sure he's the only one you direct your spiritual life towards.
So all acts of worship.
All of them. External acts like prayer, fasting, and sacrifice. And internal acts like trust, fear, hope, humility, love, all of it, exclusively to God. The source defines the term Ilah deity as the one who is cherished, worshipped, obeyed, and magnified.
And if you let anything else share in that ultimate devotion, you've violated this principle.
You have. This is the core mission of all the messengers. And the third, complementary dimension, is Tawheed al-Asma wal Sifat.
The oneness of names and attributes.
Which means believing that God has perfect names and attributes, and we have to understand them exactly as they're revealed without distorting them or comparing them to created things.
We learn about God only from what he has revealed of himself.
That's the only way.
And this third area, names and attributes, is historically where so many theological debates got really, really heated. How do we approach knowing the divine without falling into all these traps? That seems to be what part 2 is all about.
It is.
So if we accept that our knowledge of God's names and attributes has to come only from revelation, we still need a really strict methodology to interpret that revelation. We can't just rely on imagination.
The methodology is grounded in two principles: affirmation and negation.
Okay, explain that.
We affirm every perfect name and attribute God affirmed for himself. Things like knowledge, power, life, hearing, sight, speech.
And negation.
At the same time, we negate everything he negated for himself. Any idea of deficiency, fatigue, sleep, need, or crucially, any comparison to creation.
That seems straightforward enough. Affirm the positive, deny the negative. But historically, this is where people tripped up, isn't it? When the revelation uses words we're familiar with, like hand or ascension.
This is where the source meticulously identifies 4 forbidden methodologies. We need to go slow here, because these 4 errors really define the boundaries of sound belief.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first is tamthil, comparison. This is comparing God's attributes to those of his creation.
So saying God has a hand, but then imagining it's just like a human hand.
Exactly. Or that his knowledge is limited like our knowledge. The source gives us the definitive principle to guard against this. There is nothing like him. We affirm the attribute, but we simultaneously deny any likeness.
We affirm the meaning, but we deny knowing the how. Okay, what's the next pitfall?
The second is tantil, denial or negation. This is rejecting the attributes entirely, or stripping them of their true divine reality.
Why would someone do that?
Historically, groups who did this were often afraid that affirming an attribute would lead to comparing it to tamthil. So they overcorrected. They just denied or explained away attributes like God's speech or his ascension over the throne.
And the result is what?
An unknowable, non-descriptive deity, which completely contradicts the rich descriptions given in the Quran.
So on one side you have comparison, on the other you have total denial. What about just changing the meaning of the words?
That is the third error, tarif, distortion. This is a linguistic manipulation.
How so?
It's changing the plain, clear meaning of a word in the revelation to some figurative or metaphorical one without any clear evidence that you should do that.
Can you give an example?
The statement that God istawa, or ascended over the throne. Someone committing tarif might say istawa just means he took control or he conquered, to avoid the perceived difficulty of a literal description.
Even though the plain Arabic meaning includes assent and settling.
Exactly. The sound methodology is to accept the literal meaning unless it is demonstrably impossible or contradictory.
I can see how that starts with good intentions, protecting God's transcendence, but it ends up replacing revelation with human interpretation.
It replaces certainty with speculation.
But doesn't this approach affirming an attribute like hand, but denying we know how, sound like we're affirming something unknowable? How do we avoid that?
That leads directly to the fourth and final prohibition, takif, asking how.
Okay.
Takif is inquiring into the unknown nature or modality, the kayfiyah of the attributes. We affirm that God ascended because he told us so, but we absolutely do not ask how he ascended.
We don't have that information.
Since God hasn't revealed the kayfiyah, trying to describe it or imagine it is just falling into speculation and ignorance. We know the reality of the attribute, but not the modality of it.
That brings a profound level of discipline to this. It draws a very clear line between what we can know from revelation and what has to remain a mystery.
It does.
The text also grounds this creed by creating a historical roadmap of intellectual error. It spends a lot of time categorizing and refuting those who deviated from sound belief in God. These 5 groups seem to represent the whole spectrum of rejection.
They do. We can start with those who denied the need for a creator entirely, the Daris, atheistic philosophers.
That was their core belief.
They believed in the eternity and self-existence of the world, often called Dar, or time. They claimed matter had no beginning and just existed perpetually.
So they're the philosophical materialists of the ancient world. They just replace the creator with time itself.
That's a good way to put it. The second group seems to replace God with natural processes, the Tabi'un, the naturalists.
They're naturalists.
They attributed everything in the universe, its operation, its order, its complexity, entirely to Tabi'a, nature, elements, immutable laws.
And the source has a potent logical refutation for this, doesn't it?
A classic one. The naturalists believed that blind, deaf, and non-sensing nature brought forth living creatures that see, hear, feel, and think. Reason dictates that an effect cannot possess qualities superior to its cause.
Right. How can an unconscious cause produce conscious life?
Exactly. The source just dismisses this as irrational. It elevates blind natural processes to the status of a deity.
That argument is timeless. It connects directly to modern debates where people affirm the complexity of, say, evolution, but stop short of acknowledging an intelligent force behind it.
Indeed. The third group is the Sufiyun, the accidentalists.
Accidentalists, okay.
If the Darists believed in perpetual matter and the Tabi'un in natural laws, the accidentalists argued that creation arose purely from random chance, coincidence, accident.
A cosmic dice roll.
A cosmic dice roll. They claimed the intricate organization of the cosmos, the precise distances between stars, all of it resulted from random, meaningless collisions of particles.
Which is easily refuted by just looking around.
Yes. The source argues if you saw vast armies marching in perfect formation, you'd never say it happened by accident. To apply that notion of pure chance to the infinitely more complex universe is just a flight from reality.
The source then moves into more modern, politically motivated denials, mentioning the Shuyuun, communists or Marxists.
Right. They are categorized as those who denied God and limited reality strictly to matter and material life, often basing their denial on perceived social structures or economic needs.
And finally, there's the category of specific historical individuals who challenged belief directly.
The historical adversaries. These are figures who, through sheer hubris, didn't just deny God, but actually claimed divinity for themselves. The text points to Pharaoh, who said, "I do not know for you any God other than me," and Nimrod, who argued with Abraham about God's power.
So they serve as narrative examples of where this deviation can ultimately lead.
The most extreme manifestation of it, yes.
Okay, moving from outright denial of God to what is considered the greatest violation of his nature. Shirk, polytheism, associating partners with him. Why is this considered the single greatest sin in this creedal system?
Because it is the direct, unpardonable violation of Tawheed Al-Uluhiyah.
The oneness of worship.
Right. Shirk is defined as dedicating any act of worship, love, reliance, fear, prayer, sacrifice, calling upon for help to anyone or anything other than God.
And the text says this can be subtle, right? Not just bowing to an idol.
Very subtle. It can be relying on an amulet for protection, taking oaths by things other than God, or attributing natural events to causes other than God's ultimate will. This is the difference between major shirk, which is direct worship, and minor shirk, which is using means that aren't sanctioned, like relying on omens.
And the consequences outlined in the source are absolute, non-negotiable.
They're laid out very starkly. First, it is the one unforgivable sin if a person dies without repenting from it. The text is explicit. Indeed, God does not forgive association with him, but he forgives what is less than that for whom he wills.
And beyond that.
Second, shirk nullifies and completely wipes out all righteous deeds a person has ever done. And third, it results in eternal prohibition from paradise, leading to eternal hellfire.
That reflects the magnitude of the crime, equating the created with the eternal creator.
It does. And to reinforce the absolute necessity of uluhiyah, the source returns to logic. It offers a powerful rational proof for the unity of the divine.
What is that proof?
The proof rests on the necessity of cosmic order. The source argues, look, if there were multiple co-equal gods, say 2 of them, and one wanted to create the world a certain way while the other wanted to stop it, one of 3 things would have to happen.
Okay.
One god would succeed and the other would fail. 2, both would fail. Or 3, both would somehow succeed, resulting in total chaos and contradiction.
But the universe isn't chaotic, it's orderly.
The observed order, balance, and stability of the universe proves that there is a single, unified, absolute power. If the cosmos functions coherently, it must have one manager, one commander, one Allah.
Having established the foundation of God's existence and oneness, we now move to the invisible means by which his command and revelation are carried out. We start with the second pillar, the angels.
Belief in the angels. This is the conviction that they are honorable servants, created from light, continuously obedient, possessing immense strength, and capable of taking on diverse forms.
And they don't have free will like humans do, right?
No, they're devoted entirely to carrying out God's commands. They never disobey.
And the source gives us this comprehensive look at their organizational structure, detailing 6 major roles and names. It really emphasizes the sheer scale of this invisible architecture.
It really does. The text highlights the primary roles. First, Jibreel or Gabriel.
The chief angel.
The chief angel, yes. His core responsibility is divine revelation, YY, bringing the messages and scriptures from God to the prophets.
Okay. And the second?
Mikal, or Michael. He's responsible for the physical sustenance of creation, specifically rain, water, and the growth of plants.
And the third major one?
Israfil, or Raphael, the angel responsible for the ultimate end and rebeginning of life. He's the one who will blow the trumpet, the Sur.
Twice.
Twice. The first blow for the end of all life, and the second for the resurrection.
It's striking how these 3 figures divide up these massive portfolios. Gabriel for the life of the spirit, Mikael for the life of the earth, and Israfil for the life of the hereafter.
The roles are vast. The remaining roles focus more closely on human life. So fourth, we have the guardians, or Hafada.
The recording angels.
The angels who record all of our deeds, positioned on the right for good deeds and the left for bad deeds, always present.
Okay.
Fifth, taking souls. The angel of death and his assistants, who are responsible for ending life when its appointed time is up. And sixth, grave interrogation.
Munkar and Nakir.
Munkar and Nakir, the 2 dark, fearsome angels who question every deceased person immediately after burial about their Lord, their faith, and their prophet.
And this questioning is the very first stage of either reward or punishment.
The very first.
Now, here's one of those deeply memorable details that connects the invisible world directly to our material one. The fascinating role of the angel assigned to the fetus.
Yes. The source notes that after an embryo is 120 days old, God sends an angel to breathe the spirit into it.
And at that point, the angel is commanded to write down 4 things.
4 specific, predetermined aspects of that individual's life. Their provision, their lifespan, their deed, and whether they will ultimately be wretched or happy.
Destined for hellfire or for paradise.
Yes. It provides this stark connection between Qadar, divine decree, and the very inception of our lives.
The third pillar. Conviction that God sent down books, scriptures as truth, guidance, and mercy.
Yes, and as a clear argument to establish justice, we must affirm belief in all of them, both those we know by name and those we don't.
And the key known books are specified.
The Torah, given to Moses. The Gospel, or Injil, given to Jesus. The Psalms, or Zabur, given to David. The scrolls of Abraham and Moses, and of course the glorious Quran, given to Muhammad.
Now, since the Quran is the final, complete, and protected revelation, it has to act as the ultimate judge over all the previous texts. How does the source describe that relationship?
The Quran is described as Al-Muhaymin, the guardian, the ultimate ruler, the witness over previous scriptures. And because historical corruption, tarif, affected the older texts, the source establishes 3 crucial conditions for how we approach information found in them.
Let's take these one by one. First, what does the Creed say about material in, say, the Torah or Gospel that the Quran explicitly confirms?
If the Quran confirms a story, a historical event, or a theological point like the stories of Abraham or Pharaoh, then we accept it as absolute truth. The Quran is the witness validating that original message.
That makes sense. Confirmation means acceptance. Now, what about information that the Quran explicitly contradicts?
Anything that contradicts the core tenets of Tawheed is rejected outright. The source is clear. Claims like the Trinity, or that Jesus is God's son, or stories that falsely attribute major sins to the prophets. These must be rejected. The Creed holds that these are later textual distortions that enter the texts after their original revelation.
So confirmation leads to acceptance, contradiction leads to rejection, but what about all that gray area? All those historical details in older texts that the Quran is just silent on.
This is the third and most cautious condition. If a detail is mentioned in a previous book but is neither confirmed nor denied by the Quran, we adopt a neutral stance.
Meaning you don't fully accept it, but you don't fully deny it either.
Exactly. We simply note it, But we don't rely on it to establish creed or law.
Yeah.
It's a pragmatic approach that safeguards the purity of the faith from unverified information.
That systematic transmission of guidance brings us to the fourth pillar, belief in the messengers. What was their fundamental role?
The messengers, or rusul, were selected men. They were infallible in conveying the message, sent as bearers of good news of paradise and as warners of hellfire.
And their ultimate purpose?
To lead humanity away from the darkness of shirk and into the light of Tawheed. It is essential to understand that all the messengers, regardless of their specific law, carry the exact same core message: worship God alone.
And what does belief in them require from us as followers?
3 things. First, confirmation and acceptance of everything they reported from God. Second, obedience and following their final, complete law, which for us means the Sharia brought by Muhammad.
And the third?
And crucially, love and allegiance to them, defending their honor and their legacy. The source emphasizes that belief in all messengers, named and unnamed, is mandatory.
So accepting some but rejecting others is disbelief.
It is.
The source also singles out the final messenger of Muhammad and highlights a very strict condition for complete faith linked to him.
Yes. It is an obligation and a condition for complete faith to love the messenger Muhammad more than your own children, your parents, your spouse, and all other people combined.
And that love translates into action.
Directly into complete emulation of his example, because he is the perfect human embodiment of the creed in action. We're transitioning now into the pillars that govern the future and the fundamental nature of reality itself. We begin with the 5th pillar, belief in the last day.
Belief in the last day is the firm conviction that God will resurrect all creation and repay them for their deeds in a definitive, permanent judgment. The text provides a systematic, chronological map of the afterlife, starting from the moment life ends.
And that initial period is the life of the grave, the barzakh.
The barzakh is the intermediate realm. The soul resides there from death until the resurrection. 2 things happen immediately after burial.
The questioning.
The questioning by the angels Munkar and Nakir. And based on that, if the person was a believer, the grave will be expanded, filled with light, and open to paradise.
And if they were a disbeliever,
the grave will contract, filling with torment. This intermediate punishment or reward is real, and it is immediate.
the barzakh then gives way to the eventual signs that announce the end of the world.
The source requires belief in all the signs, both the minor signs, which began with the prophet's mission and continue today.
Like what? Things like the proliferation of ignorance, the disappearance of trustworthy people, excessive building, and the major signs, which will happen sequentially very close to the final hour.
And these are the big dramatic events.
The emergence of the Dajjal, the Antichrist, the descent of Jesus Christ, the appearance of the beast of the earth, and the most dramatic, the sun rising from the west.
And when that final sign occurs, the world ends, leading to the resurrection. Al-Ba'th.
The resurrection is initiated by the second blowing of Israfil's trumpet. God restores everyone to life, and the text provides this detail. They will rise naked, uncircumcised, and barefoot, all converging on the plain of gathering.
And once gathered, humanity stands for the longest, most terrifying phase, the stages of judgment, the Hisab.
This is a complex, sequential process. First, the grand gathering and the long wait, where the sun is brought very close. Then, the distribution of the record books of deeds.
The righteous get it in their right hand,
Signifying ease and success. The disbelievers get it in their left hand or behind their back, a symbol of doom.
Then what happens?
After this, the scales, the mawazin, are set up to weigh the deeds. And the source emphasizes it's not just the volume of action being weighed, it's the quality, the sincerity.
So one sincere good deed can outweigh a mountain of thoughtless ones.
It can. And finally, there's the crossing of the bridge, the Sirat, which spans over the hellfire. Your speed and safety in crossing depends entirely on the strength of your faith and deeds from this life.
The source mentions a crucial distinction here in the type of accounting, the easy yard versus the severe hisab.
That distinction underscores mercy. For the true, strong believer, the reckoning is an easy yard, a simple presentation of their deeds. God shows them privately, forgives them, and tells them to enter paradise. It's not a harsh examination.
But for the disbelievers,
For them, the reckoning is much more severe, detailed, and humiliating. They'll be unable to deny any of their actions.
and that entire process culminates in the definitive, permanent outcome, reward and punishment.
This requires conviction in the absolute reality of heaven, Jannah, and hellfire, Nar. Heaven is the ultimate home of comprehensive reward, both physical and spiritual, with the greatest reward being the sight of God.
And hellfire is the eternal home of torment for the disbelievers.
Yes, both sensory and spiritual torment.
We turn now to the sixth and final pillar, Al-Qadar, divine decree. This is arguably the most complex metaphysical concept, addressing how God's absolute will interacts with human action. The text breaks this down into 4 required levels of affirmation.
To affirm Qadar, you have to affirm all 4 levels. First is knowledge, al-ilm.
Meaning
God's eternal, comprehensive knowledge of absolutely everything that will happen, is happening, and has happened. His knowledge isn't acquired over time, it's absolute and eternal.
Okay, level 2.
Writing, al-kitaba. God wrote the destinies, the Qadar, of all creation in the preserved tablet, Allah al-Mahfuz.
And the source gives a specific time frame for this.
A fascinating detail. This writing occurred 50,000 years before the creation of the heavens and the earth. Everything that will happen has already been recorded.
Level 3.
Will, al-Mashiach. Nothing happens in the universe. No action, no event, no intention, good or bad, except by God's absolute overriding will.
And number 4.
Creation, al-Khalq.
Yeah.
God is the creator of everything in the universe. And crucially, this includes the actions of his servants. God creates the action itself, the capability, and the result, while the servant earns or performs the action using the will and ability God gave them.
Okay, that 4th level, creation, is where the philosophical tension comes in. If God is the ultimate creator of my action, how am I truly responsible? It sounds a lot like determinism.
That is the common objection, and the centrist creed offers a very nuanced defense. While God is the ultimate creator of the action, he has granted the human being real active attributes.
Which are?
Mashiach, which is the free will to choose, and Qudra, the ability or power to execute that choice. The action is attributed to you, the servant, because you actively chose it and initiated it using the will God gave you.
So you're responsible for the choice you make and the intention you form.
Even if the ultimate power that brings the act into being rests with God. Precisely.
So how does this connect to divine law?
The source insists that the Sharia, the divine law, does not contradict Qadar. This is the key intellectual bridge. The Sharia, the commands and prohibitions, is the visible law by which we are judged. Qadar, the decree, is hidden. It's a mystery.
So we're judged on our visible choice and effort, not on the hidden destiny we didn't know about.
Exactly. God commands you to act in a certain way based on the choice you actively make.
Understanding this nuance is vital for refuting those who erred on this topic. The text details 2 extreme groups.
It does. The first group is the Al-Qadara, the deniers of Qadar.
They championed extreme free will.
To an extreme. They denied that God had pre-eternal knowledge or writing or creation of human acts. They said the servant creates his own actions, independently of God. This radically compromises God's absolute lordship.
And the opposite extreme, the Al-Jabariyah, the determinists.
The Jabariyah denied human choice and ability entirely. They saw the human being as totally passive, like a feather blowing in the wind, with no real will or responsibility.
Which leads to the dangerous idea that accountability is pointless.
It does. So the centrist creed avoids both extremes. It affirms God's ultimate creative power, which refutes the Qadariya, while also affirming real human choice and responsibility, which refutes the Jabariyah.
After establishing these 6 pillars that define God, the universe, and destiny, the source then shifts to how these beliefs shape your conduct and relationship with the community. And it starts with the actual comprehensive definition of faith itself.
Yes. The orthodox definition is that faith, Iman, is a comprehensive reality. It's made of 3 indispensable interconnected elements.
What are they?
Affirmation, or tasdeeq, by the heart. Utterance, or qawl, by the tongue like declaring the 2 testimonies of faith. And action, or amal, by the limbs carrying out the rituals and duties.
So, since faith requires action, it logically can't be static. It can't just be one thing.
Absolutely not. The source explicitly says that faith is dynamic. It increases with obedience and good deeds, and it decreases with sin and negligence. The 3 components are symbiotic.
The heart's belief requires the tongue's declaration and the body's action to be complete?
Exactly. If the heart truly affirms, the limbs must follow. Internal belief is inseparable from external manifestation.
And this definition of faith is central to refuting historical extremism about the status of a major sinner. The debate on Al-Aweed, the threat, really forced the community to define the boundaries of belief.
It did. The centrist orthodox view refutes 2 major historical deviations. The first is Al-Murji'ah.
What does they believe?
They claim that faith is solely heart affirmation. They argue that disobedience doesn't harm someone who truly believes, just like obedience doesn't help someone who disbelieves.
That's a dangerous view. It minimizes the importance of deeds.
It essentially gives a license to sin. On the opposite side, you have the extreme harshness of the Al Qadi and the Al-Mu'tazila.
And they claimed, what?
They claim that committing any major sin like adultery or theft instantly kicks you out of the fold of faith. The Qadi said you become an immediate disbeliever, deserving of eternal hellfire.
So what's the balanced centrist position that the text defines? The one that reconciles the severity of sin with the reality of faith?
The orthodox position maintains that theological balance. It asserts that the major sinner is deficient in faith. They are still a sinner, a physic. Their faith is incomplete, but they remain a believer.
Okay, so they're not kicked out entirely.
No. They're subject to God's will. He may forgive them instantly, or he may punish them in hellfire for a limited time, but they are not subject to eternal hellfire.
It's that principle of wasaya, balance, again.
Exactly. It protects the community's unity while still affirming the gravity of sin.
Let's move to how these beliefs dictate community life, starting with the complex issue of authority and stability, al-imama, leadership, and al-jama, the community.
The source provides very clear boundaries for political engagement. The core principle is the obligation to hear and obey the rulers in all matters that do not involve sin.
And this is for the sake of unity and stability.
It is. The text contains a strong, explicit prohibition against rising up against the rulers, even if they are unjust, because the chaos that results is often worse than the injustice being suffered.
When, if ever, is challenging authority permissible within this framework?
Only when there is clear, undeniable, and visible proof of manifest disbelief. Kufur bawa. And there has to be unambiguous textual evidence for it.
So it's a very high bar.
An extremely high bar. The text warns severely against relying on speculation or personal grudges to challenge leadership.
And that emphasis on unity extends to the reverence given to the first generation of Muslims, the companions, the Sahaba.
It's an obligation of the Creed to love, defend, and seek forgiveness for all the companions. They are definitively ranked as the best generation to ever exist.
And there's a ranking within their ranks as well.
There is. A preference for the migrants, the muhajirin, over the helpers, the ansar, and a strict established ranking of the four rightly guided caliphs, Abu Bakr, then Umar, then Uthman, then Ali.
What about the disputes that happen between them?
It is obligatory to withhold judgment regarding any historical disputes between them, believing that they were all diligent in their striving and deserving of reward.
Earlier, we established that revelation has to be the foundation. The source formalizes this with its source methodology, its usul, for establishing creed and law.
This methodology is very strict. The ultimate foundation for understanding creed and law relies on only three sources: the Quran, the authentic Sunnah, and the regulated consensus, or ijma, of the early scholars.
So it's a deliberate limitation.
It is. Personal opinion, uncontrolled spiritual feeling, spiritual unveiling, or legal analogy. None of these can supersede or contradict these three foundational sources.
So if a person feels in their heart that God requires X, but the text says Y, the text has to win.
Precisely. And this is vital. When human intellect, aqwal, appears to contradict authentic revelation, naqul, the text insists the problem isn't with the revelation.
It's with our understanding or our reasoning.
Exactly. Sound intellect, when properly applied, will never genuinely contradict authentic revelation.
And this adherence to the sound sources is protected by a strict avoidance of innovation. Al-bidah.
Innovation is defined as any newly invented matter in religion that doesn't conform to the Prophet's way. The source categorizes them.
Like what?
There are creedal innovations, like the views of the Qadariyah. There are ritualistic practices, like inventing new ways to pray. There are even minor additions to existing worship that aren't supported by evidence.
And the text says all innovations are dangerous.
Because they imply the religion was incomplete, and they distract the worshiper from the perfected way of the Prophet.
The final section of the text ties all this belief back to action. It outlines the complementary topics, the ethical and social signs of a sound creed.
These are the pillars of conduct that perfect one's belief. The source stresses the duty of encouraging good and forbidding evil.
But it's heavily qualified, isn't it?
Very heavily. It must be done with three essential conditions: knowledge of the issue, compassion and kindness toward the person you're addressing, and patience when you face opposition. It is never a duty to be exercised rashly or aggressively.
And finally, the communal and moral values that underpin the whole community.
The text stresses promoting unity, and avoiding division. It emphasizes that all believers are connected and must actively seek cohesion, avoiding sectarianism over secondary issues.
And then there's morality.
Lastly, it highlights the excellence of morals, makram al-akhlaq, virtues like patience, humility, generosity, justice, truthfulness. These are considered heavy on the scales of deeds on the Day of Judgment.
Proving that creed and character are inseparable.
They are.
This deep dive, using the rigorous framework of the facilitated creed, has been a truly systematic tour of Islamic belief. We moved from the certainty of God's existence and his oneness, Tawheed.
Navigated the invisible architecture of the universe with the angels, books, and messengers.
Charted the metaphysical future with the last day, settled the profound difficulty of destiny, qadar, and finally brought it all down to the application of faith in community and conduct.
And the systematic nature of this presentation is its greatest asset for you, the learner. By starting with revelation and showing how it aligns with sound human nature and intellect, the Creed provides a complete worldview that prevents information overload and confusion,
It establishes that clear, unwavering hierarchy of sources.
ensuring that your foundational knowledge is always grounded in certainty.
And here's where it gets really interesting, connecting that historical roadmap of error back to our present moment. The text spent significant time refuting those philosophical deviations of the past.
The Daris, who replaced God with eternal time, the Tabi'un, who replaced him with blind nature, and the Sufiyun, who replaced intentional design with random chance.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you see that the intellectual challenges are constant. They just get repackaged.
So the ultimate challenge for the learner today isn't just memorizing the 6 pillars. It's actively using this critical framework, this usul, to filter modern systems of thought.
So you have to ask, where do current materialistic philosophies and scientific determinisms, which try to replace God with purely physical causes or limit reality to just human will, where do they align with those ancient deviations of the naturalists and the accidentalists?
The mission, then, is to apply this creedal clarity to critically examine where modern ideas are attempting to substitute matter, chance, or simply the human ego for the comprehensive existence and power of the one Creator.
That's a challenge worth reflecting on until our next deep dive.